Come, there is a quiet but commanding law governing every human life, whether one is aware of it or not. Come, this law responds not to wishes, not to hopes, but to the dominant attitude you carry within your mind. Life does not move in the direction of your words. It moves in the direction of your deepest assumptions. When you act as if everything always works out, you place yourself in harmony with this law. And harmony brings order, opportunity, and power. Most people wait for proof before they believe. They wait for conditions to improve before they act with confidence. They wait for reassurance before they commit. But those who rise above the ordinary understand a higher principles. Belief precedes evidence. The moment you carry yourself as one who expects favorable outcomes, your mind begins to search for ways to justify that expectation. You become alert to ideas you once ignored, doors you once passed by, and strengths you once doubted. Acting as if everything works out does not mean denying challenges. It means refusing to bow to them. Every difficulty you encounter is not a signal to retreat, but an invitation to expand. When you meet uncertainty with calm assurance, you signal to life that you are prepared for greater responsibility. Life, in turn, responds by revealing resources you did not know you possessed. Your subconscious mind is a faithful servant. It accepts whatever you repeatedly impress upon it as truth. If you continually expect failure, delay, or disappointment, it will arrange your behavior, decisions, and reactions to fulfill that expectation. But when you train it through steady thought and consistent action to expect success, it reorganizes your inner world. Fear weakens, courage strengthens, and persistence becomes natural rather than forced. Observe those who appear fortunate. Come, you will find that their greatest asset is not luck, but an unwavering assumption that things will turn in their favor. Come, this assumption gives them resilience. When plans collapse, they do not collapse with them. They remain standing, already searching for the advantage hidden within the experience. They understand that temporary defeat is not final unless accepted as such. When you act as if everything works out, you stop broadcasting desperation. Desperation repels opportunity because it signals doubt. Confidence, even when quiet, attracts support because it signals readiness. People trust those who trust themselves. Come, circumstances align with those who move forward without hesitation. This principle demands discipline. It asks you to control your inner dialogue, to reject thoughts that weaken your resolve. Come, and to speak to yourself as one destined for accomplishment. Each day you practice this attitude, you strengthen a habit. The habits shape character, and character determines destiny. Begin now. In moments of confusion, act with composure. In moments of delay, maintain expectation. In moments of loss, come. Search immediately for the lesson and the opportunity concealed within it. Do this not once, but consistently. Come until it becomes your natural state. When you live as though everything always works out, you do not force life to obey you. You align yourself with its highest possibilities. And in that alignment, success ceases to be an accident and becomes a predictable result. Come. The mind is not persuaded by occasional thoughts or temporary emotions. It is shaped by repetition and reinforced through action. Whatever idea is consistently held, emotionally accepted, come, and acted upon becomes impressed upon the deeper levels of consciousness. The mind does not distinguish between what is true and what is repeatedly assumed to be true. It simply accepts the patterns it is fed most often. When a person repeatedly believes in limitation, speaks from doubt, and acts cautiously out of fear. Come, the mind adopts this as a working model of reality and begins to organize behavior accordingly. Decisions become smaller, risks are avoided, and opportunities are unconsciously filtered out because they do not match the accepted belief. Belief alone is powerful, but belief combined with action is decisive. Action gives belief credibility in the mind. When you act as if something is possible even before proof appears, the mind receives a powerful signal that this assumption must be valid, otherwise the action would not exist. Over time, these actions build internal evidence, and the mind begins to operate from this new standard. Confidence grows not because circumstances change first, but because the mind has been trained to expect effectiveness rather than failure. Consistency is the key factor. A single positive thought cannot override years of doubt, just as one act of courage cannot erase a habit of hesitation. But repeated thoughts aligned with repeated actions gradually rewrite the inner program. The mind begins to search for confirmation of what it believes. It notices solutions instead of obstacles, ideas instead of excuses, and possibilities instead of risks. This selective perception is not imagination. It is the natural function of a mind working to validate its dominant beliefs. Once the mind accepts a belief as true, it influences posture, tone of voice, reactions, and persistence. These subtle changes affect how others respond, how challenges are approached, and how setbacks are interpreted. What appears to be a change in fortune is often a change in mental alignment. The mind, trained through consistent belief and action, becomes a powerful ally rather than an internal opponent, directing energy toward creation instead of resistance. Faith is not a passive feeling held in silence. There it is a force that comes alive only when expressed through deliberate action. True faith does not wait for certainty or guarantee before moving forward. It operates on the understanding that movement itself creates clarity. When a person acts with faith, even in the presence of doubt, they demonstrate an inner decision to trust an unseen outcome. This decision alters the way the mind and emotions respond to circumstances, replacing hesitation with purpose and fear with resolve. Action taken in faith sends a powerful message inward. The subconscious mind responds to behavior more strongly than to words or intentions. When you step forward despite uncertainty, the mind interprets this as evidence of inner strength and capability. Gradually, confidence becomes rooted not in external approval, but in lived experience. Each act of faith reinforces the belief that you can handle what follows. And this belief reshapes how challenges are approached. Circumstances also respond differently to faith in motion. People are naturally drawn to those who act with conviction. Opportunities often reveal themselves only after commitment has been made, not before. When faith is expressed through action, it places you in environments where growth is possible. New information, allies, and solutions appear because you have entered the field where they exist. Remaining still while waiting for reassurance keeps potential locked away. Faith reshapes circumstances not by magic, but by alignment. When your actions match your inner expectation, energy is no longer divided. Doubt drains effort, while faith concentrates it. Focus sharpens, persistence increases, and setbacks are met with adaptability rather than retreat. What once seemed like resistance becomes instruction, guiding the next step instead of blocking progress. Over time, consistent action rooted in faith alters identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who hopes for favorable outcomes, but as someone who creates movement regardless of conditions. This shift changes the scale of goals you attempt and the patience you bring to the process. Faith expressed daily through action becomes a living principle, shaping behavior, influencing outcomes, and steadily transforming circumstances from uncertain to responsive. Persistent expectation of success is not wishful thinking. It is a disciplined mental posture maintained regardless of immediate results. When the mind is trained to expect favorable outcomes, it begins to operate with a quiet certainty that influences every choice. This expectation acts like a compass, subtly guiding attention toward paths that support progress. Instead of scanning the environment for threats or reasons to withdraw, the mind searches for alignment, timing, opportunity. What seems like chance is often the result of sustained readiness, meeting the right moment. Expectation shapes behavior long before results appear. A person who genuinely expects success prepares differently, speaks differently, and responds differently to obstacles. Their preparation is thorough because they assume their efforts will matter. Their communication carries confidence because they anticipate constructive responses. Their reaction to difficulty is patient rather than emotional because they see setbacks as temporary deviations rather than final verdicts. These behaviors increase the likelihood of favorable outcomes, reinforcing the original expectation. Opportunities are rarely obvious to a mind conditioned by doubt. Doubt narrows perception, causing the individual to overlook possibilities that do not come with guarantees. Persistent expectation expands perception. It allows a person to recognize partial openings, unfinished ideas, and imperfect chances that can be developed. Many opportunities arrive disguised as inconvenience, responsibility, or risk. Only a mind trained to expect success will engage with them long enough to uncover their value. This expectation also influences how others respond. People sense belief before they hear explanations. When you consistently expect positive results, you project steadiness and trustworthiness. Others are more willing to collaborate, invest, or offer support because they feel secure in your direction. This social response further multiplies opportunities, creating a network of reinforcement around your efforts. Persistence is what transforms expectation into attraction. A brief period of optimism followed by discouragement sends mixed signals to the mind and to life itself. But when expectation remains steady through delay and resistance, it develops momentum. Each small confirmation strengthens belief, and belief sharpens focus. Over time, opportunities seem to appear more frequently, not because the world has changed, but because the individual has trained themselves to remain open, engaged, calm, and responsive to success-oriented possibilities. Fear is not an external force acting upon a person. It is an internal reaction created by uncertainty, imagination, and lack of decision. It thrives in hesitation and grows stronger when left unchallenged. The moment a person delays action, fear fills the empty space with imagined outcomes, most of which never occur. This mental rehearsal of loss, embarrassment, or failure gives fear its apparent authority. Yet fear has no substance of its own. It exists only as long as it is allowed to remain unopposed. Decisive behavior interrupts this process. When a clear decision is made and acted upon, the mind no longer has the freedom to wander into worst-case scenarios. Action brings attention into the present moment where fear has little room to operate. The body aligns with intention, energy is mobilized, and focus replaces anxiety. even if the decision leads to discomfort. Come, the discomfort is concrete and manageable, unlike fear, which is vague and overwhelming. Confidence is not the absence of fear, it is the willingness to move despite it. Each decisive action weakens fear by proving that it does not control outcomes. The mind learns through experience that survival learning and progress occur even when fear is present. This realization gradually dissolves the emotional charge fear once carried. What once felt paralyzing becomes familiar, and familiarity removes intimidation. Decisiveness also builds self-trust. When you repeatedly act with clarity rather than avoidance, you develop faith in your ability to handle consequences. This trust reduces the need for certainty before acting. Fear depends on the belief that one cannot cope with what might happen. As self-trust grows, that belief loses its grip. Come, the challenges are approached with curiosity rather than dread, and mistakes are treated as feedback rather than failure. Come, confident behavior sends a signal outward as well. Others respond differently to someone who moves with certainty. Resistance decreases, cooperation increases, and environments become less hostile. This external shift further reduces fear, creating a reinforcing cycle where action leads to positive response. And positive response strengthens confidence. Over time, fear fades not because risks disappear, but because decisive, confident behavior has trained the mind to remain steady in the face of uncertainty. Every setback carries within it the potential for growth, insight, or redirection. Though this truth is rarely visible in the moment of disappointment, when plans collapse or expectations fail, the immediate emotional response is often frustration or defeat. Yet a setback is not an empty event, it is information. It reveals what does not work, what requires adjustment, and what inner strengths have not yet been developed. The meaning assigned to a setback determines whether it becomes an obstacle or a turning point. Those who progress steadily understand that failure is never absolute unless it is accepted as final. A temporary defeat only marks the end of one approach, not the end of the goal. Within every unfavorable outcome lies a clue pointing toward a better method, a new direction, or a deeper level of preparation. This perspective transforms disappointment into analysis. Instead of asking why something went wrong, attention shifts to what can be learned and how the experience can be used. Setbacks also refine character. They expose impatience, weak commitment, or reliance on external validation. In doing so, they provide an opportunity to strengthen persistence and self-reliance. Many abilities remain dormant until pressure demands their emergence. Resilience, creativity, calm, and adaptability often develop only when circumstances force a person to stretch beyond comfort. What initially feels like loss becomes the very condition that awakens hidden capacity. Opportunities born from setbacks often arrive disguised as necessity. When one path closes, alternatives that were previously ignored suddenly demand consideration. New skills may need to be learned, new connections formed, or new ideas explored. These changes frequently lead to outcomes superior to the original plan. What seemed like rejection becomes redirection, aligning effort with a more suitable opportunity. The advantage within a setback is realized only by those who refuse to dwell in self-pity. By maintaining composure and continuing forward movement, the mind stays receptive. This receptivity allows insight to surface and timing to improve. Over time, a pattern becomes clear. Many of life's most valuable achievements trace their origins to moments of apparent defeat. The setback itself was not the reward, but it carried the seed that made future success possible. Habitual positive assumption is the practice of repeatedly expecting favorable outcomes until this expectation becomes automatic. It is not a temporary burst of optimism, but a disciplined mental routine established through consistent thought, emotional control, and behavior. The subconscious mind operates on patterns. It accepts what is familiar and rejects what is inconsistent. When positive assumptions are practiced daily, they gradually replace doubt-based reactions and become the default response to situations. The subconscious does not respond to logic alone. It responds to repetition and emotion. Each time a person assumes things will work out, even in small matters, the mind records that assumption as a reference point. Over time, this repeated expectation forms a mental pathway. When challenges arise, the mind instinctively searches for solutions instead of reasons to withdraw. This shift happens quietly, without effort, because the habit has been formed through consistency. Programming the subconscious through positive assumption also influences emotional stability. Instead of reacting with panic or frustration, the individual remains composed. Emotional reactions lose intensity because the underlying belief is that resolution is inevitable. This calm state allows clearer thinking and better judgment. Decisions are made from clarity rather than urgency, increasing their effectiveness. Behavior naturally follows inner programming. When the subconscious expects success, actions align with that expectation. Effort becomes steady rather than forced. Persistence replaces procrastination. And discipline feels less like sacrifice and more like identity. The person no longer needs external motivation because their internal direction is already set. This alignment between belief and behavior accelerates progress. External results begin to reflect this inner order. Others respond positively to consistency and calm confidence. Opportunities seem more accessible, not because circumstances are magically altered, but because the individual remains engaged long enough to recognize and develop them. Habitual positive assumption keeps the mind oriented toward progress, regardless of temporary conditions. Over time, this practice reshapes self-image. The individual sees themselves as capable, adaptable, and supported by life itself. This self-image reinforces the habit, creating a self-sustaining cycle. The subconscious, fully programmed with expectation of favorable outcomes, works continuously to guide thoughts, actions, and perceptions in harmony with achievement and constructive results. The principle that everything works out is not a matter of chance, hope, or blind optimism. It is a disciplined way of thinking and living. When the mind is trained through consistent belief, decisive action, persistent expectation, and calm confidence, it begins to cooperate with life instead of resisting it. Fear loses its authority. Setbacks reveal their hidden value. And opportunities become visible to those prepared to see them. Through habitual positive assumption, the inner world is reordered and the outer world responds in kind. What appears to others as luck is simply alignment between thought, action, and expectation. When this alignment becomes a way of life, progress becomes steady, purpose becomes clear, and success becomes the natural outcome of an ordered mind moving forward with certainty. Favor is a dimension of grace that causes divine preference beyond human qualification. And this truth reveals why some outcomes cannot be explained by effort, background, or merit. In life, qualification is often measured by education, experience, connections, and preparation. But favor operates on a higher order where God steps into human limitation and overrides natural expectations. It is the reason a person can be chosen without being the most obvious option, elevated without fitting the standard criteria, and remembered in spaces where many others were forgotten. This does not mean competence is irrelevant, but it shows that competence alone is never enough to command destiny-level outcomes. Divine preference means God deliberately singles out a person and places his weight behind their journey. When this happens, access is granted where doors were previously sealed, and consideration is given where rejection was guaranteed. Favor causes decision makers to see you through a lens you did not create for yourself. It shifts perception, softens resistance, and attracts goodwill without negotiation. People may not always know why they are inclined to help, recommend, or support you, but favor influences their hearts beyond conscious reasoning. This grace becomes especially evident in moments of competition and scarcity. When many are equally capable, favor determines who is selected. When systems are tight and opportunities are few, favor creates room where none existed. It breaks the rule of equal effort producing equal results and introduces a higher law where grace produces disproportionate outcomes. This is why two people can invest the same energy, pray similar prayers, and follow similar paths, yet experience vastly different results. Beyond advantage, favor also carries preservation. It shields a person from consequences that should have destroyed them and restores them from mistakes that should have disqualified them. It does not excuse error, but it provides mercy that allows growth instead of termination. This is why humility is essential, because favor is never proof of superiority, but evidence of divine mercy. When understood correctly, favor inspires gratitude rather than pride, and dependence rather than arrogance. That it teaches a person to rely on God beyond personal ability and to acknowledge without divine preference, effort alone is fragile and uncertain. Favor is rooted in alignment with God's purpose, not desperation or manipulation. And this understanding corrects the mindset of those who see favor as something to chase rather than something that follows alignment. Many approach God driven by urgency, pressure, and fear, hoping that intense desire alone will attract divine intervention. While hunger is important, desperation often leads people to shortcuts, compromises, and emotional decisions that move them further away from the very favor they seek. Favor does not respond to anxiety. It responds to surrender. It flows most freely where a life is yielded and positioned correctly, not where God is treated as an emergency solution. Alignment means that a person's values, decisions, and direction agree with divine intention. When alignment is present, favor becomes a natural consequence rather than a thought out. God invests in what reflects his will. Because purpose is the framework through which heaven expresses itself on earth. This is why favor is not released to promote personal ambition at the expense of divine assignment. When someone is aligned, even ordinary actions begin to carry extraordinary results because they are backed by divine approval rather than human pressure. Manipulation, on the other hand, is an attempt to control outcomes without inner transformation. It shows up as selective obedience, transactional prayer, and spiritual activity motivated by gain rather than relationship. This posture may produce temporary results, but it cannot sustain true favor. Favor is relational before it is functional. It flows from intimacy, trust, and obedience, not from techniques or formulas. God cannot be manipulated. Come. And when favor is pursued as a tool rather than a trust, it eventually withdraws. Alignment also requires patience, because purpose unfolds in seasons. Many lose favor by rushing ahead of divine timing. Come, they attempt to force doors open instead of waiting for God to open them. True favor removes the need for striving because it brings peace even in waiting. A person who is aligned understands that delay is not denial and that preparation is often the hidden work of favor. When alignment is maintained, favor becomes consistent rather than occasional. It rests on a life as a covering, guiding decisions, ordering steps, and attracting the right opportunities at the right time, proving that destiny advances most powerfully when surrender replaces desperation. Favor opens doors that strength, intelligence, and connections cannot open, revealing the limitations of human advantage when faced with destiny-level opportunities. Strength can labor, intelligence can strategize, and connections can recommend. Come, but there are realms where none of these qualities are sufficient. In such moments, progress is not determined by effort, but by authorization. Favor is that authorization that gives access beyond capacity. It is what allows a person to enter rooms they were never trained for, be heard in conversations they were not invited into, and receive opportunities that cannot be traced to human endorsement. Human ability functions within systems, but favor transcends systems. Systems respond to rules, policies, and hierarchy. Come, yet favor introduces divine override. This is why some doors remain closed despite excellence and preparation, while others suddenly open with minimal resistance. Favor does not ignore preparation, but it compensates where preparation is incomplete. It bridges gaps that experience cannot fill and accelerates learning beyond natural speed. When favor is present, growth that should take years can happen in months, and recognition that should require long visibility can arrive suddenly. Connections are powerful, but they are fragile. People can change their minds, lose influence, or become limited by their own constraints. Favor, however, does not depend on the stability of human relationships. It works directly on hearts and circumstances. It can turn critics into advocates and strangers into helpers. Even when connections fail, favor creates new pathways that bypass human disappointment. This is why those who rely solely on relationships often live in fear of loss, while those who trust favor walk with confidence even in uncertainty. Strength and intelligence often produce fatigue because they rely on continuous exertion. Favor introduces rest into progress. It allows movement without strain and advancement without burnout. This does not mean effort disappears, but effort is no longer the source of success. Instead, effort becomes a response to grace rather than a substitute for it. Favor ensures that energy is invested where it matters most and that results exceed the effort applied. Ultimately, favor reveals that destiny is not a reward for the strongest or the smartest, but an outcome of divine involvement. When doors open by favor, they carry sustainability, protection, and relevance that human effort alone can never secure. Favor is sustained by character, obedience, and spiritual sensitivity, because while favor can be given as a gift, it must be kept through responsibility. Many people desire the lifting power of favor, but underestimate the weight it brings. Favor increases access, visibility, and influence, and these exposures demand inner strength to manage them correctly. Without character, Favor becomes dangerous, turning opportunity into a test that a person is not prepared to pass. This is why some experience sudden elevation followed by sudden collapse, not because favor left arbitrarily, but because the life carrying it lacked the structure to sustain it. Character provides stability. It governs how a person behaves when no one is watching and how they respond when everyone is watching. Favor amplifies both strengths and weaknesses. When character is weak, favor magnifies flaws, attracting scrutiny, sinks accuracy, humility. Then discipline act as anchors that prevent favor from drifting into pride or abuse. Obedience, on the other hand, keeps favor aligned with its source. Disobedience breaks alignment, and when alignment is broken, favor loses its legal ground to remain. Spiritual sensitivity is the ability to discern divine direction and timing. Favor is not static, it moves with seasons. What sustained favor in one season may threaten it in another if sensitivity is lost. Many lose favor by repeating old instructions in new seasons. Sensitivity allows a person to recognize when to advance, when to withdraw, and when to remain silent. It protects from unnecessary battles and prevents overexposure. When favor is present, not every opportunity should be accepted, and not every door should be entered. Discernment guards destiny from distractions disguised as promotion. Obedience also trains restraint. Favor gives access, but obedience decides boundaries. Without boundaries, access becomes excess, and excess invites destruction. This is why favor does not excuse error. Instead, it demands higher accountability. The more favor a person carries, the more precise their obedience must become. What others can get away with may become costly when favor is involved. When character, obedience, and sensitivity work together, favor rests as a covering rather than a moment. It becomes consistent, trustworthy, and enduring, shaping a life that can carry divine preference without losing direction or depth. Favor attracts helpers, opportunities, and divine speed in destiny, revealing that progress is rarely achieved in isolation. God has designed advancement to flow through relationships, moments, and timing. And favor becomes the force that aligns these elements in a person's life. Helpers are individuals who carry access, insight, or authority needed for the next phase of destiny. Without favor, these helpers may exist but remain unreachable or uninterested. With favor, hearts are inclined, attention is granted, and support is released without excessive persuasion. Helpers are not always permanent figures. Some are seasonal, assigned to specific transitions. Favor ensures that the right helper appears at the right time and exits without conflict when their assignment is complete. This prevents unhealthy dependence while still allowing genuine support when favor is active. Even ordinary encounters can become destiny-defining moments. A simple conversation, introduction, or recommendation can trigger a chain of events that shifts an entire future. What would normally require years of networking can happen through one divinely arranged connection. Opportunities also respond to favor. Many opportunities exist, but not all are visible or accessible. Favor highlights certain paths while hiding others. It brings clarity about which doors matter and which ones are distractions. Instead of chasing multiple options, favor positions a person to be sought after. Opportunities begin to look for the individual rather than the individual searching for them. This reduces confusion and waste of energy, allowing focus on what aligns with purpose. Come, divine speed is the acceleration that occurs when God intervenes in timing. It does not ignore preparation, but it compresses processes. Favor causes progress to happen faster than expected, not because steps were skipped, but because obstacles were removed. Delays caused by bureaucracy, opposition, or misunderstanding suddenly dissolve. What was postponed repeatedly begins to move with momentum. The divine speed restores lost time and redeems seasons that seemed wasted. However, favor does not eliminate responsibility. Come, helpers must be honored, opportunities must be stewarded, and speed must be managed with wisdom. When favor increases pace, discipline must increase depth. A life that lacks order cannot handle acceleration. Favor attracts momentum, but wisdom directs it. When favor is recognized and managed well, destiny advances with clarity, support, and efficiency. Come, proving that what takes others a lifetime to achieve can unfold swiftly when divine alignment releases helpers. Come, opportunities and speed together. Favor must be recognized, valued, and stewarded to remain effective. Come, because what is not understood is often mismanaged or lost. Many experience favor without realizing it, assuming that unusual access, repeated mercy, or unexpected help is normal. When favor is treated as coincidence, gratitude diminishes and carelessness increases. Recognition brings awareness, and awareness produces reverence. When a person discerns that God's hand is actively involved in their journey, come, their posture changes from entitlement to appreciation, which creates an environment where favor can continue to rest. Valuing favor means responding with honor, humility, and responsibility. Favor is not an endorsement of perfection, but an invitation to growth. When people mistake favor for approval of all their actions, they begin to abuse access and ignore correction. Valuing favor requires the understanding that greater privilege comes with greater accountability. Come, the higher the level of favor, the more intentional a person must be about conduct, decisions, and associations. Come, this mindset protects favor from being wasted on careless living. Stewardship involves intentional action. Favor opens doors, but wisdom decides what happens inside those doors. Opportunities must be maximized, time must be managed, and relationships must be handled with discernment. Favor gives advantage, but it does not replace diligence. When favor brings visibility, preparation must match exposure. When favor brings increase, structure must sustain it. Come, stewardship is the discipline of building capacity that can hold what favor delivers. Another aspect of stewardship is alignment with purpose. Favor is not given merely for personal comfort, but for impact. When favor is redirected towards selfish ambition, it begins to lose its strength. Using favor to serve purpose keeps it fresh and effective. This is why many experience stagnation after initial breakthroughs. They enjoyed the benefit of favor but neglected its assignment. Favor flourishes where it is used to bless, uplift, and advance divine intent. Gratitude is also a form of stewardship. A thankful heart remains sensitive and teachable. Come, gratitude prevents familiarity, and familiarity often leads to dishonor. When a person remains grateful, they stay aware that favor is a gift, not a right. This awareness guards against pride and keeps dependence on God intact. When favor is recognized, valued, and stewarded properly, it does not fade with time or seasons. It grows in influence, that deepens in impact, and remains effective as a sustaining grace rather than a temporary experience. Come, favor must be recognized, valued, and stewarded to remain effective. Because what is not understood is often mismanaged or lost. Many experience favor without realizing it. Come, assuming that unusual access, repeated mercy, or unexpected help is normal. When favor is treated as coincidence, gratitude diminishes and carelessness increases. Recognition brings awareness, and awareness produces reverence. When a person discerns that God's hand is actively involved in their journey, their posture changes from entitlement to appreciation, which creates an environment where favor can continue to rest. Valuing favor means responding with honor, humility, and responsibility. Favor is not an endorsement of perfection, but an invitation to growth. When people mistake favor for approval of all their actions, they begin to abuse access and ignore correction. Valuing favor requires the understanding that greater privilege comes with greater accountability. The higher the level of favor, the more intentional a person must be about conduct, decisions, and associations. This mindset protects favor from being wasted on careless living. Stewardship involves intentional action. Favor opens doors, but wisdom decides what happens inside those doors. Opportunities must be maximized. Time must be managed, and relationships must be handled with discernment. Favor gives advantage, but it does not replace diligence. When favor brings visibility, preparation must match exposure. When favor brings increase, structure must sustain it. Stewardship is the discipline of building capacity that can hold what favor delivers. Another aspect of stewardship is alignment with purpose. Favor is not given merely for personal comfort, but for impact. When favor is redirected towards selfish ambition, it begins to lose its strength. Using favor to serve purpose keeps it fresh and effective. This is why many experience stagnation after initial breakthroughs. They enjoyed the benefit of favor but neglected its assignment. Favor flourishes where it is used to bless, uplift, and advance divine intent. Gratitude is also a form of stewardship. A thankful heart remains sensitive and teachable. Gratitude prevents familiarity, and familiarity often leads to dishonor. When a person remains grateful, they stay aware that favor is a gift, not a right. This awareness guards against pride and keeps dependence on God intact. When favor is recognized, valued, and stewarded properly, it does not fade with time or seasons. It grows in influence, deepens in impact, and remains effective as a sustaining grace rather than a temporary experience.